Economic Ninja here. We've got new layoffs in 2024 being announced as of today. I've got three different examples of a handful of different companies, and the layoffs are becoming more extreme. We are seeing layoffs now well into the double digits of the entire company employee pool being laid off. In the beginning of 2023, we saw tech layoffs, and we saw announcements coming from companies that they were laying off 5%, 8%, 9% of the workforce. Now we're into the 10, 15. Even today, in the first story with Canada Goose laying off 17% of its workforce. We are seeing stories about Stellantis, how they laid off a bunch of their white collar executive staff. They told them there was a mandatory stay-at-home day, and they laid them off that way. We're seeing Bell out of India laying off their employees through conference calls. This is absolutely insane, and it is going to get much worse. That's why you watch these news stories and you start to see them adding up. And I used a photo from what I call the perp walk of Lehman Brothers for the thumbnail for this video. And the reason why is because you'll notice all of the cameras. You see, people were lined up and the expressions on their faces weren't that of people that were just fired, laid off of their job. They had no income for the next month coming in, next 3 months. They didn't know what was happening, right? It was almost like there were actors lined up, and the media, there is a day coming, and I believe it is in this year, 2024, around the election, where we start to see mass layoffs being put out on the mainstream media. And that is the day that everybody figures it out. See, your job and my job is to see these signs, the actual events happening in real time, so that we can be prepared for this. And layoffs by companies, in order to be able to maintain any profitability at all, is a massive sign of where we are in the economy right now, not only nationally, but worldwide. So let's dive into some of these stories. First one is out of CNBC. This was just announced. Canada Goose to cut 17% of its corporate workforce following a string of retail layoffs. It says that they will, the cuts follow other retailers that have kicked off the new year with sweeping layoffs, including Macy's, Nike, and Wayfair. Between April 2021 and April 2023, Canada Goose nearly doubled its corporate workforce to support its growth, according to a securities filing. And this would make a lot of sense because there was a lot of companies that blew up during the pandemic. People had money in their hands, they had time to do online shopping, and they were buying stuff like crazy. It said, just came out that they'll be releasing about 70% of its workforce. It's not clear how many employees will be laid off. The cuts will affect staff at Canada Goose's corporate headquarters, which had about 915 employees as of April 2023, according to a securities filing. In a statement Tuesday, the CEO, Danny Reyes, said, "Today we are realigning our teams to ensure that corporate resources are fit for purpose to fuel our next phase of growth across geographies, categories, and channels." That's a really nice way of saying we don't have the sales coming in that we used to. We have to let all these people go. It's a very big deal when you start seeing these companies laying people off, but seeing it ahead of time before the masses follow. As a matter of fact, how many of you have family and friends that you've shared these stories with? In 2023, we had a banking crash, and it is following into 2024. And sharing with family and friends, hey, we've got layoffs happening on a massive scale right now. Cisco, Google, Intel, not only just the tech companies, but we see real estate firms in 2023 laying massive amounts of people off. We are seeing the government printing massive amounts of money, and yet your friends and family, they don't care. They have no clue. Type 1 if you're one of those people that have been doing that, warning people. Well, the facts are, just like in the thumbnail photo that I put in there, the perp walk of Lehman Brothers, I was warning people back in mid-2005 when I was selling my real estate, because the real estate crash had happened in 2005. It just took that long for all of the wealthy people to sell off their assets. Back then, if you would follow what was going on with Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway, they were moving to cash during the years of mid-2005, 2007. It was very widely known. And yet, people were saying, well, what's he doing? He's, he obviously isn't, in the party, the money printing party right now. Yet he was the one that led the charge of buying railroad stocks and things like that once 2008 was in full view of the general public. And it was in full view of the general public. Why? Because that's when it was in the media. Well, now we're covering stories. We just went over Canada Goose. Now let's move on to Stellantis. Stellantis uses mandatory remote workday to cut its white-collar jobs. It was a mass firing of everybody that was on the call. Can you imagine? You are a white-collar employee and you're making good money. You've made it. You've worked your way up in the industry. You are told, hey, everybody, we're going to have a mandatory day off. Just go ahead and relax. But hey, we'll have a call during that day. And every single person on that call being fired. What a coward's way to go out, right? It says white collar workers at Chrysler plant Stellantis have reason to be nervous if they ever receive a company notice telling them it's mandatory that they work remotely on a particular day. That's what happened to 400 or so of their colleagues on Thursday. They were informed via a notice that the next day the car maker would be holding important operational meetings that require specific attention and participation. To ensure, this is a quote, to ensure everyone can effectively participate. Yes, they wanted to make sure that everyone effectively participated in being fired. The notice continued, we have decided to implement a mandatory workday. Employees, it indicated, were expected to work from home unless otherwise instructed by your manager. The car dealership guy on X announced account shared the notice on Thursday. The workers in question were salaried, non-union employees in technology and engineering in the US. Well, when the car industry is collapsing, you don't really need a lot of people in tech and engineering because you're just going to pretty much produce the same car you did last year because everything's going down. The economic US ship is sinking right now. And this is why we report on these kind of stories, because as they ramp up and the percentages, like I said, are getting bigger of the employee pools. We were seeing 3%, 5%, 8% layoffs. Now we're seeing 10%, 15%, 17% layoffs. Pretty soon, you're going to see companies laying off 25 and 30% of their entire company staff. Why would you need them? Because you are not making the sales. But yet your stocks are up because of massive speculation in the stock market, a bubble that is imploding right now and people don't even see it. Why isn't it? How do I know it's imploding? Well, it's not imploding in numbers because people are diving into the whole idea that I've got to get some yield. Inflation is killing me. It's destroying my purchasing power. I've got to try and get in. And hey, the stock market bubble is blowing up, just like right before the 1929 crash that led into the Great Depression. What's happening is companies are showing you right now, we don't have the juice. We don't got it. We don't got the profit. So we're laying people off. That's the first thing a CFO can do is look at the balance sheet and go, where can I cut the fat? I'm going to need to trim some fat. Okay, I'm going to do it in employees. We're going to separate the wheat from the chaff. Ever heard that before? So now let's dive into this story because I think Stellantis is absolutely cowardice in the way they lay people off. All right, California food chains are laying off workers ahead of a new minimum wage law. Like we didn't all see this coming, right? Type 3 if you saw this coming. Little brief note. This is what happens when the government overreaches and tells companies they need to pay people more. They go, yeah, no problem. Companies are always going to figure out a way of making profits. And one of those ways is laying people off. It says right here, some California fast food locations are letting go of workers ahead of a new $20 minimum wage law slated to take effect in April that could dramatically impact their bottom lines. Several eateries, particularly pizza chains, have begun to cut jobs in an effort to get ahead of possible financial repercussions, the Wall Street Journal reported. Michael Oeda, 29, a Pizza Hut driver in Ontario, California, told the newspaper that he received a notice from Pizza Hut franchisee Southern California Pizza in December, informing him that his last day of work would be in February. Why? because they're not going to be able to make the profit. So they're going to go down to a skeleton crew. Remember, the media got the attention of all kinds of workers in California, fast food workers, and got them on board, did tons of news stories, built that news cycle up really massive of how badly people needed more income. They didn't report on the fact that the federal government, in conjunction with a private bank, the Central Bank of America, which is a private bank, that's not federal, it has no reserves, is actually the culprit behind this inflation. They didn't report on that. They don't report on the fact that in the Constitution it says money shall be in no form other than gold and silver coin. Why? Because there is no inflation tied to that. They don't report on the fact that we've had 3 central banks in our country. 2 have been kicked out, and the last one started in the early 1900s, is still here today, and it's screwing things up left and right. They didn't report on that. They report on how bad you need more money. They don't report on the fact that the Federal Reserve has a mandate to keep inflation at 2%. Why? Because they don't want to destroy your purchasing power too fast. They want to make you feel rich by stealing at minimum 2% from your purchasing power every year. They don't want to report on that. They want to report on how bad you need money. They pull on the emotional heartstrings of the American consumer, the American worker. Well, now the American worker is being laid off. And later this year, it's going to be an amazing talking point for politicians that want to buy your vote. How are they going to do that? Right before the election, that's when the mass fires, the big ones, are going to be happening. And they're going to be saying how if you vote for them, you're going to vote yourself prosperity, because they're going to make sure you've got money. They're going to make those corporate guys pay. They're going to make the rich pay. Guess what? They just hired tens of thousands of new IRS agents. But I hate to tell you, it's not for them. It's not for the elite. It's for you. I hope people wake up. As we go out, sign out. Type 5 if you understand and agree with what I'm saying. Thank you to everybody that's sharing these videos. Thank you to everybody that hit the subscribe button. You are all amazing people. Look, there's not a lot of things we can do to stop this. What we can do is share this information and get it out to the masses, and then do something about it. Take advantage of it. This crash is coming whether you like it or not. So why not become wealthy and then take that money and help people and help your family? Generational wealth can be made like that during an economic downturn. More millionaires are made during a crash than during good times. So I want to see all of you absolutely crush it during this. How do you do that? You start to save money on the side. You get out of debts. You have a clear mind and a plan set up. You purchase inflation hedges like wealthy people are doing, Bitcoin, gold, silver. Look at the treasury markets right now, because when you have cash and the bond market is going to implode and rates are going to go much, much higher than they are now, wouldn't it be nice to have a really nice bond portfolio at those high rates, so that when interest rates do go down, and they will, they only go down during a crash, just so you know, then your bond portfolio explodes higher in value. I hope you got something out of today. I thank you so much for watching. The Economic Ninja is out.